The Angry Chicken is a production of amove.tv. Check out Amove TV for more podcasts covering Blizzard games. And for more of Jocelyn's gaming podcasts, visit jossplays.com. The Angry Chicken is brought to you by our legendary patrons over at patreon.com/TAC.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Legendary!
You face Jaraxxus. You smell like a leopard gnome. I knew it. So hot.
A podcast about Hearthstone and battlegrounds. Wait, what's battlegrounds?
I'll explain later. Just keep going.
This is the Angry Chicken.
Greetings and welcome, everyone. This is indeed TAC. I'm Garrett, joined as always by Jocelyn, and also joined yet again by RidiculousHat. Welcome back, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming back. We got some.
Yeah.
We have a lot of meta fallout to discuss in all corners of the game.
Yes. Live from New York, it's your standard correspondent, RidiculousHat, joining the Angry Chicken to report in.
Indeed. We've got so much to talk about today, including replies on Reddit by Iksar that started happening when we were about to record, and so some of that stuff, most of it is, actually all of it is in Battlegrounds, at least at this moment, unless he's still replying in threads on Reddit that we'll need to pull in at the last possible second. But yeah, we got so much to talk about. And I didn't have power right before this. My power went out, and we were recording almost 40 minutes late, so I'm a little frazzled. Hopefully it holds together. And if you're watching live and it goes down, we're going to make do. Don't expect the stream to come back up if the power goes out. So, but to everybody listening to the audio podcast, you get the good version.
You won't even notice.
You get the good. You get the version of the show where we reference things that aren't going to affect you. Hope you enjoy. Although it would be great if I just don't return and it's just Joss and Hat finishing the show. That would be, and then we don't explain it. If that happens, Joss, don't add a note.
Oh no,
So,
I will
hey,
not know.
Hey everyone, we lost here. No, just finish like the hour extra of the show without me and make no reference to it. Okay.
Love it.
Talk about the nerf patch, and you got nerfed, and then I'm here, just shorter.
Done. Done. Well, awesome. Well, before we get into it, we want to thank those of you supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. That is the place you can go and support this here program. And it helps us out a ton. And you'll also get some perks like an ad-free version of the podcast, access to our Discord, and get to sign up for our upcoming Taco Battlegrounds, where we're going to make a bracket out of a bunch of 8-player Battlegrounds lobbies because that's something we can do now. Hell yeah.
Hooray!
Super excited about that. Still working out the finer details, but it will happen on the final Friday of this month. And to some of our most recent patrons, thank you to Sancho McCann and Michael Veek. I hope I didn't butcher anyone's names this week. We really appreciate the support. And if you would like the show and you want to support us, head on over to patreon.com/TAC. And with all of that in mind and out of the way, let's get into it with this week's Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
All right. It's been, what, like 24 hours and change since the patch dropped. Now, we detailed it on the last episode of The Angry Chicken, which came out a day later last week, which worked out perfectly. But we've now had some time to play with it, and I figured we'd switch it back, the order of events on the show, back around and kick things off with Constructed, especially since Hat is here. And quite a few, well, not quite a few, but a couple nerfs, a few, I guess, if you're a stickler for a couple meaning two and a few meaning more than two, a few if you count wild. Rogue got their secret passage nerfed, which just sounds weird to say.
It didn't until you brought it up, and now it does.
Hat, last week, Joss and I were giggling about something else that we said about secret passage, and it ended up being the episode title. So we're just doing a callback. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, we're also 12-year-olds.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There was an alternate universe where maybe like you said something immature and she gave you a dark glare.
Hat, you're just the best worst.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I was. This is what I missed. I don't actually bring you on for your constructed knowledge. I just want the wordplay. That's all I want. The puns and the wordplay. That'd be great.
I'm here for you.
That'd be great. So, anyways, as we talked about last week, Secret Passage is only going to be replacing your hand with 4 cards from your deck as opposed to the 5 that it had before. And as far as which decks are affected, basically all rogue. Would that be fair to say?
So, on the one hand, every rogue deck was playing this card, and it definitely got nerfed. On the other hand, I've run the numbers, and it appears the new version is 1 mana to draw 4 cards. That still seems like a good deal. A deal. It's. I think all the other classes would be like, yeah, I'll take one of those. I'll take a nerf Secret Passage. I'll pay 1 mana for 4 cards. So, I think it's. This is a nudge, and it reminds me a lot of these nerfs are pretty slight nudges, or at least are intended to. Much like there are the nerfs that we didn't even notice last expansion, like Bloodboiled Brute and Bloodsworn Mercenary. They were meant to make the cards slightly worse when you play them, but not take them out of your deck. That's what happened here.
I think that's fair. It's a fair assessment. Has it because I know you were. Well, I mean, you play all sorts of things, but I was getting a little bit of rogue guidance from you a little bit ago. Is this something that as positively as you can still look at it? Because yeah, if we frame it under the light of, well, hey, shaman or warlock or priest or any other class, would you like a 1 mana draw 4? The answer is of course yes. But as someone who likes rogue, does this do anything to make you second guess locking in that rogue deck before you hit the ladder?
So it's yes, but not because of this. I was already growing a little. I was starting to question the more aggressive rogue strategies already, because you think about week 1 of Scholomance, it was big on Druid on like the first 2 days, and then Paladin started to creep up, and then Rogue started to creep up. But those were kind of initial strategies that were a little bit more obvious, and now as the meta keeps going, Rogue has largely stayed the same, except for a couple cool new evolutions like the Secret Miracle, whatever you want to call it, the deck with Hanar and Backstabs and Preps and Shadow Steps and Questing Adventurers and Edwin. Everyone has a different name for it, but we all know which deck we're talking about. That deck, I think, has some room for growth, but the aggro and the weapon decks are kind of pretty stable, and they were starting to fall out of favor because a lot of those decks really don't like playing against some of the new stuff coming around, the new Libroom Paladin decks, Cyclone Mage, Turtle Mage. As Turtle Mage has gotten better, Rogue has just not really been able to keep up as much. So
before we move on from that, what are your thoughts on Turtle Mage? Because we've talked about a little bit around and we don't need to go too deep into it, because obviously it's not necessarily anything that's been affected by these nerfs other than potentially just being made a little better. But we've talked about it a little bit on the esports side of things. But on ladder, what are your thoughts around this deck? Because yeah, it's a, let's call it a point of controversy within the community. It's very polarizing in opinions.
Yes. I like the idea of a cool puzzle deck existing, but I think the healthiest thing to do with the deck is that if you queue up with Turtle Mage, you should secretly be placed in solo content, because you don't really want to play against anybody anyways. That's not really what you want to do.
Up against an AI and just be like, there you go.
Would you really even notice? Because if you're playing Turtle Mage, you're like, how do I navigate out of the situation? How do I last until turn 8? How do I get into this cool puzzle game state where I'm able to solve it on my own? You don't require interactivity, and you're trying to play 12 Frost Novas in a row. Just like when you queue up with that deck, put those players that want that experience into, secretly replace their opponent with an AI, and everybody gets to be happy. It's as for how it should exist right now, I think it'll probably be around for another month after the Masters Tour, and then I think there's probably it's healthier for the game if Tortolan Pilgrim just summons the spell from your deck, recruits the spell from your deck instead of copying it. because 12 Frost Novas a game just shouldn't be a thing that happens.
Right.
And Hearthstone is all about playing minions and doing things. And like combo decks I get can be frustrating if you don't like just dying out of nowhere. But this isn't dying out of nowhere. This is the ability to attack being removed from the game. I question if that's a healthy experience for anyone. And also, if you were a new player that is not as wired in, or even a more tenured player that's not as wired in, the first time you see this, you're going to say, what is going on and why is this happening and why can't I attack ever? The puzzle-solving experience, I think, is a really big factor for players running it. But the being on the receiving end is so negative, I don't think they can leave it in the game.
Yeah, it doesn't seem, you're right, that being on the receiving end of it is just not a great game experience. It's not even necessarily that, oh, it's unbeatable or whatever. It's just like it takes such a major part of the game out of it for your opponent that I completely agree with you. And I like the solution of making Tortollan actually cast the spell from the deck as opposed to making like casting it but keeping the copy in there. Like that seems a little bit crazy, and especially since they added in ways to like manipulate where cards are in your deck, it's like made it so much more because they've taken out the kind of random draw part of it where like, oh, I could randomly draw the spell and then it shuts off the engine of my deck. It's like, oh no, wait, but if I just reorder it and put that card at the bottom, it's not getting rid of it like tracking. It's putting it exactly where I need it to be so that we can just keep going forever. Yeah. And that's not fun.
And combo decks existing is cool. The mechanism this one operates on is interesting. But the result of if it won right away, I'd almost be happier because it's just you feel compelled to stay in the game, even though the amount of available actions to you is reduced so much. And it's difficult to play, and it can be difficult to play against, and there are ways to beat it. But I've heard the argument a lot of, well, if you want to beat it, just put Living Dragon Breath in your deck. That's not the point. The point here is that any player that's seeing it for the first time should not be running Living Dragon Breath, and you shouldn't have to tech to avoid a negative ladder experience. Just because you can beat something from a competitive angle doesn't mean that as a game that is meant to be accessible and engaging, that not being able to attack with your minions is okay because they printed a tech card that you aren't playing.
Yeah, this is a conversation that isn't necessarily like a balance conversation. This is definitely an experience conversation. Yeah. And so just because you can do things that like makes the game balanced doesn't necessarily mean that makes the game a good experience. So I think, like, again, I agree. I think we need to change this deck, and yeah, I'm sad that they're like some of the decks are kind of like falling off because they just don't want to play or can't compete against Turtle Mage.
So to circle back to leave the secret passage, to zoom back at the end of the turn. The reason that I stopped playing aggro rogue is because I felt really capable of dealing 25 damage all of a sudden and really bad at dealing 30. And there are a bunch of reasons for that. It's not just Turtle Mage, and in fact, Rogue has the tech against Turtle Mage. Infrarogue is actually sharing in chat. You can play Flick Skyshiv, and a lot of Rogue decks have started to play Flick again. And boys, it's satisfying to flick the Pilgrim when you're against a Turtle Mage. But the rest of the format has also felt like it's caught up. Warrior put Risky Skipper back in the deck into the Bomb Warrior, which I guess we decided for a week it was a good idea to not run Risky Skipper for some reason. I'm glad we've gotten over that momentary insanity. It feels like the Rogue is what I like about the Secret Passage nerf is that the card is clearly still good, but it makes a deck like Weapon Rogue that was so dependent on finding Self-Sharpening Sword a little bit less consistent, and I think that's good by design because sometimes now you'll passage and the fifth card would have been the sword, but other times you'll passage and the fifth time would have been the poison, and you just got to stick with the sword, and so 1-4 and it's not as good. I like that powering down while keeping the card playable.
Well said. So we didn't have as much to say about Cabal Acolyte last week when the nerf to that was announced, and I personally haven't run into any examples of this nerf in my own play. I don't play Priest, shouldn't surprise anyone if you've listened to the last like 3 months of this program. Did
you say years?
What was that?
Years, months, years?
Years?
What unit of time are we using?
I don't know. It's hard to tell when the deck feels the same for so long. But like the most popular priest list right now is Res Mage. If games played on a site like HS Replay, anything, or Res Mage, Res Priest. If games played on things like HS Replay or anything to go by, and they just don't run this card. But the second most popular is Highlander Priest, and they do run this card, but it's Highlander, so you may not always see it played against you. Who am I kidding? It's Priest. They probably survived to turn 40. I'm sure you saw it eventually. This kind of, to me, this keeps going with your nudge comment, Hat. Like it's a good nudge. I'm glad that it's a little easier to deal with. It's a bit of an annoying minion, but to me, it's not the kind of thing where I'm like, all right, finally they did something about Priest. But not everyone agrees with me that they need to do something about Priest.
Yeah, I do think this nerf is a little bit more significant, but also it's not bad that it is, because the play with this card before was slam it on 4 and your opponent probably can't kill it and then do stuff. Now, if you're not pairing it with Wave right away, it probably dies. Or if they go Cabal Wave on 5, you're no longer fighting through 6 health and then getting hit with your own minion. But it is pretty significantly worse. With that being said, Highlander probably still runs it because it's just one card, but I do think that 2 of like a standard Control or Galakron Priest is probably less likely to run this now, or they still run it and they're less likely to win because of it. I don't know. It does feel like Priest was it was already falling, and this was a hit to their best card. So I don't know if there are other strategies that haven't been explored as much yet, but I do expect Priest to suffer kind of significantly from this one.
And for audio listeners, if you don't remember, the Cabal Acolyte went down from 6 health to 4, in case you're not following along with any sort of visual guide. And then we get into the buffs. I was pretty excited about the buff to Totem Goliath, becoming a 5/5 up from a 4/5, and the overload cost being cut in half, going down to only an overload of 1. Played quite a bit of Totem Shaman since yesterday, personally, and was because I haven't played it in a while, and it reminded me how much fun this deck is. B, also sadly reminded me that sometimes that deck just loses, like horribly. But when it goes off, it's fantastic. And can confirm Totem Goliath feels a lot better. Have you played any Totem Shaman, Joce, or Hat?
Not me.
No.
I gave you the deck list, and I'll let you try it out.
I did listen. It is happy fun times. But if you want to win on the regular, probably not the best list to be, or just archetype in general. I've seen this meme before, so I don't know why it's like so hot all of a sudden. But have y'all seen the "Are you winning, son" memes going around lately? Yeah. So Totem Shaman, your dad pokes his head in the door and goes, "Did you draw a tour guide, son? Because if you didn't, you're going to have a bad time." I hope you have tour guide on 1, because otherwise it feels real bad. When you do draw tour guide on 1, oh, buddy, does it feel great. It's nice. I'm being reductive here. There are, of course, ways you can come back, but it feels like an uphill battle otherwise. So, and then there was also the buff to Archwitch Willow, going down from 9 mana to 8 mana, but also attack and health going from 7/7 down to 5/5. The battle cry staying the same of summoning a random deck from your hand and your deck. Joce, you and I were a little kind of somewhat confused about this. I think we ended up on, what you're doing. If you are playing this card, you're into it for the battle cry, but we're not too sure why you would want to play this card, and I'm still not too sure why you'd want to play this card.
Yeah, this one was a surprise, I think, to me, considering all the other things that are going on in constructed Hearthstone right now. I was like, Archwitch Willow was not on my radar for nerfing, buffing, anything. Yeah. Weird choice, I thought.
Yeah.
They keep printing good demons, but they're green. This is purple. They need to make some purple demons.
Right?
The good demons, like they're hanging out with Illidan, who's the new kid, and he's popular in school because he's got all the Hot Topic clothes or whatever.
He doesn't wear shirts, so that's like half of a wardrobe you're not even worrying about. He's got the cool tattoos.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's it. So, anyways, I assume that there's a cool demon deck coming next expansion. There has to be something. I mean, like Recruit. The thing about Recruit and this mechanic, if you didn't play in Kobold and Catacombs, we had a mechanic called Recruit, and it basically said when you play this card, you win the game. And this is it's similar, but the demons are a lot worse now. But the mana cost is all that matters because you're not playing this for the body. You're playing this to drop an enhanced Dreadlord or two, I guess. But we're waiting for something that we don't have yet. Like, that's the only explanation that I can see here. Because this is... And Alec was even saying that in development, they had this at 8, and then they pushed it last minute. I assume that was after the 3rd or 4th Ashes patch. They were like, we don't want to do this again for Scholomance. Let's just nerf some cards that have some powerful mechanics on them. And then they reverted this back, and it'll be fine. But we have to be waiting for something. So otherwise, I don't know why. I don't know why this card.
I mean, really, that also might be a good example without Alec. Alec Dawson I'm assuming the developer you're referencing. Without Alec specifying why they decided to push the mana cost of Willow, and Alec didn't, because we covered his tweets on the episode last week. To me, I just think this is probably a good kind of general example of pocket metas are real in development teams, right? Like, you may not see things that the community finds once millions of games are played within a day of an expansion or a patch rolling out. Because I don't know. This one that didn't even really pique my interest in the reveal season either. So very interesting. We've never been huge Wild players here on the show. We tend to dip our toes in every once in a while, but I've heard from quite a few on Twitter. Wild players seem to be quite happy and about the Dark Glare nerf. And if they aren't, I'm assuming they played Dark Glare and they don't listen to the show or didn't feel the need to make their unhappiness known to us.
Yeah. So Wild needed this because what you would do in Wild, for those of you that haven't played it, you would go turn 3 Sense Demons, which is a Warlock basic card. It's 3 mana, go get 2 demons from your deck. The only demons you played were Dark Glare and Flame Imp. Ideally, you would draw one of each. Turn 4, you would go Dark Glare, Flame Imp, Life Tap, Penflinger My Own Face, Raise Dead, Kobold Librarian, some other form of damage myself, and then you'd play multiple Molten Giants and Flesh Giants, and then you play Broomstick to give them rush. Often with multiple Cult Neophytes, or a Loatheb, if you had the coin, to make your opponent unable to play anything, and then you would kill them. And if they stopped your board somehow, you would do this a couple times a game. It was pretty powerful.
It was like a combo zoo. Is the best way I can give it a tagline.
Yes.
Yeah, it was nutty to say the least. And now,
with that being said, well, a bunch of things. First, in Standard, it was actually kind of good too. It was getting there. It was a great Druid counter, and there were still a bunch of Flesh Giants coming down in turn 4. And this is not a strict nerf, because if you're a Zoo deck, you'd rather have a 2-drop than a 3-drop. And the first refresh is basically the same because you get that mana crystal back right away because you spent 1 less on the minion. I think Mini Dark Glare will still be quite good in Standard and is potentially still good in Wild. It's just less crazy combo-y.
I feel like Giants in Wild are just always a problem. It's like something new happens and then they're like, oh, somebody figured out another Giant deck. Why are we doing this?
I like that they don't just completely, sorry to my dogs in the house, neuter Giants entirely, because like I've always liked Giants. Like I have very fond memories of figuring them out when Hearthstone first hit. And also, like, it's wild. Like I want Giants. I want big, ridiculous minions constantly kind of coming down on the board. it's kind of the first place my brain goes. Like big minions and ridiculous combos. I think the issue, it becomes obviously a concern, and this is a great example of it, when both of those things happen in the same deck. We don't want a ridiculous combo involving giants, but in this case it did. So I like that they're kind of hunting them down as they pop up. And again,
like leaving the giants, but going after the enablers.
Yes. As they see fit, and that's going to be, I think your mileage is going to vary on whether you're happy or not happy with this tactic. I personally I've grown a lot of patience for the balance of Hearthstone because they have been balancing the game actively much more often.
I feel like in general, Hearthstone has been in such a better place in terms of just their approach to balance, because they are not only nerfing things, but they're also buffing things, and they're doing it so much more often that it's like when something is really overpowered or not fun to play against, it's like you can sit around and wait a little bit longer before the rage comes, because you can expect that there's probably going to be a change coming down the road, as opposed to like, oh, maybe we'll change it with the next expansion, but probably also maybe not. 8 months later, still the same problems.
Yeah. Think about we're gonna go back away. Think about what the One Night in Karazhan meta looked like for the entire expansion was one playable ladder deck. Yeah. How long would that have lasted under the current philosophy? I think 2 weeks. I would guess 2 weeks.
Maybe. Yeah. Which is good. They're learning, guys. They're learning. Yeah.
Well, it's
and
not even,
also, go ahead.
I mean, it's different philosophies, right? Clearly, older Team 5 had a very distinct set of philosophies, and modern Team 5 has a different one. So I happen to align a little bit more with the current line of thinking.
Older Team 5, we love you. You made the game that got us to where we are today. We forgive you for Spirit Claws. It's fine. It's not a big deal. We still like Hearthstone. But now it just in the future, as things have changed, we have, like, the philosophy has changed. We have changed as players. We all have different expectations. And now what they're doing and what we want now align. And in the past, there might have been some misalignment, or it might have been right then. And it just isn't right now. It's okay. And I will say, if I were a Wild main, I would be so thrilled, because this is the first time they have nerfed a card that was seeing play in Standard exclusively for a Wild reason within a month of the card becoming a problem. That's a huge deal.
There's so many modifiers on that statement, and yet I am still excited about it and could follow.
Like, in the past, when something was broken in Wild and good enough in Standard, they're like, all right, well, that's just how it is. We're not balancing Wild. But now,
in a way, Wild was like a sacrificial lamb in that scenario.
Exactly. It's just like, well, Wild's just going to be the format where crazy stuff happens. Now they're like, this is too far. We're going to rein it in a little bit. Standard will be a little different.
Crazy tolerance now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff. So, I guess kind of before we move on, I wanted to take just like a second and do a bit of a pulse of the meta in Hearthstone. Nothing crazy, but Joce, have you seen that like a Highlander Demon Hunter list is really moving up the popularity and win rates on ladder? And how does that make you feel?
How dare they? I was just starting to get back on board with Constructed, and I was like, I'll start climbing the ladder as soon as all the craziness of back to school is done. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to do some ladder things. Yes, let's go. No more demon hunters. And they're like, oh, Joss, guess what? We're back. And I'm like, how did I miss my window? It was only weeks long. How did this happen?
You need to work on your Illidan impression, by the way. I've never heard him talk that way. Not once.
I
am not prepared. Not prepared. I do not want them back. I was
Illidan
really
was very clear about your level of preparation. He was really clear.
He knew. I can't.
And then the chanting from everyone has been, and this was obviously pre-nerf to Secret Passage, because that was just yesterday, was that Rogue is out as the aggressive deck that you just slam games to climb ladder, and Face Hunter is once again back in. What say you, Hat, to that?
So I have a longer answer than you probably are expecting, which is...
I mean, I know you, and...
I understand this is not atypical. This meta is amazing and challenging and well-crafted and emotionally difficult. And the experience one person has when they queue up is not going to match another person's experience. The meta is so open. Things are so balanced. You can play whatever you want, and you will play against anything. And that means when your friend says, I can't stop playing against Priest, it's Priest all the day. And you're talking about Highlander Demon Hunter, which I've never seen once ever. And everyone's else like, can anyone else believe all the Druid on the ladder? And meanwhile, I'm over here. I've seen almost exclusively Cyclone Mage for the past week. So, when I wanted to win... hey, Joce, that's Tim Horton over there. You should look. I got Legend with Aggro Demon Hunter. You were supposed to be looking over there. So anyways,
my
the meta
ears still work.
Okay, what's that? I should have told you to listen over there. But that's the thing. What works for one person might not work for the other, and really the best deck is the one that you stick with. But also, in the past meta, we said, okay, I have to be DH and Warrior, and you knew what you were doing, you knew what you were queuing up. But now if I say, okay, play Face Hunter, it's great against all these decks, and you're like, I would just play against nonstop Priests and Warriors. What do you mean? And it's like, well, I've just seen all Druids and other Hunters. It's hard to give specific advice other than stick to a deck that you like, because everything is kind of playable. And the meta is really wide open, really balanced, but also it's hard to feel good at the game when you're used to just being able to switch between a few decks because you know what you're expecting to see. And now it's really all over the place.
Yeah, I usually main 3 decks, like any given season. Or I guess any given meta is a better way to... season is irrelevant, but like any given meta, I usually have like my trifecta of decks that I rotate between. But you're right. This is definitely, and I'm blanking on a good example, but we've been in and out of metas like this before, where
Ungoro is the one that jumps to mind, but also Saviors a little bit after the Luna's nerf, and before Tombs of Terror. There was like
specific
1 month of good Saviors.
Post Luna's pre-evolve.
Yes, pre-evolve.
Pre-evolve. Well done. Well done. These are the metas where I struggle the most. I am not... I only have so much room in my brain for matchups. And so I do a lot better when matchups are more defined or predictable.
Yeah, when there's less potential decks for you to face, right? So you need to know... how does deck A play against ABC? And then how does deck B play against ABC? And you don't have to know, how do these 3 decks that I'm playing face up against all of the 18 to 20 things that I'm seeing that are viable. Because, there's always going to be people on the ladder playing some crazy stuff and just being totally out there and living their best Hearthstone life, playing whatever crazy meme stuff is there. And you don't need to know those matchups because either the deck is terrible or you're going to see it one time because it's that one dude that just absolutely loves playing the class that no one else is touching at the moment. So you can kind of shove that out of your brain. But when there's so many decks in the meta that are all competitively viable that you're seeing often enough to merit you actually understanding a matchup, but then there's 20 of those, it's just oh man, it's a lot. So as much as people say they get bored with rock paper scissors 3 deck meta, there's a lot to be said for just the amount of understanding and preparation and kind of ease of climb that you can do in a ladder like that versus a meta like this that is, yes, much more varied. So you're going to have a lot more games. It's a whole lot harder to, I guess, train for is a good way to think about it.
Yeah. I think you encapsulated it really, really well there. And being added to the notes in real time by Hat, our new Hearthstone update stenographer. A 1.5 gigabyte update is apparently rolling into the game as we speak.
Interesting.
It started while you were talking, and now the bar is filling up. So yeah,
launching BattleNet. Any notes? Are they just hot fixing some things? Because there are some bugs. We haven't gotten to Battlegrounds yet, but I'm sure they want to get a certain robot back in the game as soon as possible. So I wouldn't, but that's big. That's sizable.
It's substantial. And I imagine there will be a mobile client update. So in order to facilitate the show moving on, Garrett, to answer your question, yes, Face Hunter is good right now.
Wonderful, because it's what I'm playing. Great. And I have been running into Aggro Demon Hunter, which is why I would say I give my vote to Face Hunter, but find somewhere in that deck to fit in an explosive trap. The most popular lists out there right now don't run it. If your experience is anything like mine, which is we're going to probably need to start putting in front of any statement we make about the meta right now, but if your experience is anywhere like mine, there's a lot of small minion aggro decks out there. Demon Hunter, other Face Hunters. I've seen so many. I've been in so many mirror matchups.
And
explosive
rogues,
trap.
Stealth rogues.
Yep. Run explosive trap.
Well, those games are quick, right?
I do not understand how the most played Face Hunter list on HS Replay doesn't run a single explosive trap. I don't know how these hunters are picking up wins.
Was
They're
that
doing
the
it
double
wrong.
freezing trap, double pressure plate list?
Let me double check, but I believe you are correct. Yes.
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 That list was day one. I do not want to lose to Druid. That is what that is, because you plate the first guardian animal and you trap the other one.
Cool. There's an argument, I think, still for pressure plate if you're running up against a lot of paladins, because you're still going to see very large minions. But freezing trap can. We'll have a.
The important thing, make sure Lorekeeper Polekelt is in your Face Hunter deck, because it's so good to Polekelt into Dragonbane, Kill Command Eaglehorn Bow, Kill Command Eaglehorn Bow.
It's delightful. We saw it in Grandmasters last week. I can't remember the matchup, but it was nice. And it worked out. Was it Tice versus Bunny Hopper?
We'll go with that.
I need to start writing down matchups
when you see cool things.
Yeah. Well, last week it was a cool thing, but it was also a thing that, made me angry and offended me deeply because it was a puzzle box play. But I'm sorry to everyone who tweeted at me going, "What was the game? I don't remember." I don't remember what game it was.
And we'll also have some more really cool games coming this weekend for the Masters Tour, which starts on Friday the 11th and goes all weekend. So make sure to watch that at youtube.com/Hearthstone Esports.
Still need to remind people it's on
Yay.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Still need to remind them. All right. Well, let's talk about the Forbidden Library event, which is the themed wrapper around this entire 18.2 update. We're going to talk about battlegrounds here very shortly, and that is this first week, which brought us things like up to 4-player queuing into the Battlegrounds ladder and full 8-player custom lobbies, so on and so forth. But what we didn't talk about last week, Jocelyn, is the new free single-player adventure that the first part of 10 that will be arriving next week. And it's called The Book of Heroes. It's a new single-player adventure. It's free, as I mentioned, in the style of the Demon Hunter Prologue is what I've been told. And over the next year, Hearthstone is going to be adding a Book of Heroes adventure for free for every Hearthstone class. So this first one is going to be Mage, and so it centers around Jaina. We're going to defeat 8 bosses. The reward for defeating 8 bosses is 1 Mage pack. And you might think to yourself, but wait, there's a Jaina portrait. I saw that Jaina portrait in the announcement in the section that's explaining to me what a Book of Heroes is. And to that I say, you didn't read the fine print. And actually, you didn't read the image, which is what I didn't do. Because I even had people telling me what was going on with this event, and I still was like, but wait, what about the Jaina hero? I don't see anything in the body text. So there'll be 8 bosses to play through story mode with Jaina. We're going to go on a little adventure with Jaina. But the reward is 1 Mage pack. It's full of nothing but standard Mage cards. If you want the Jaina portrait, that's in a separate Jaina bundle that's going to be for sale next week. That also comes with 5 Mage packs.
And so these are the Mage packs that we were talking about a little while ago, and wondering if they were going to be doing this for all the classes. And I think it's pretty safe to assume now that we're at least going to get them when we get these pieces of single player content. So it sounds like we're getting a new hero done every approximately 1 per month, because they said over the next year we're going to get a Book of Heroes for every Hearthstone class. So then do we think that we're only going to get these class-specific packs with these Book of Heroes editions, or do we think that that's going to be something that we might get sooner, or are we going to get some sort of like hero bundles, like added permanently to the store? Like, where do we think that they're going with this?
I mean, it's a new bundle, right? Like, to me, I kind of look at this and like don't count anything out. We still have a lot of things to learn / be officially announced about the battle pass whenever the hell that is finally going to come to the game, and class specific packs sure seems to me like a good reward to offer in a new progression system in Hearthstone.
That so opens up the conversation of like Blizz loves hunters most and they hate warriors because the pack is at level 100 for warriors and it's at level 2
I'm
for
talking
hunters.
excruciatingly broadly here about things that no one has officially announced.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, I can see that Reddit thread now.
Listen,
I wish that wasn't so plausible, but it's just, it's.
I mean, frankly, beyond that, like, I think it would be smart of them to just sell a ton of different options of like amounts of packs that were class specific. Because if you're getting into this game, it's easy to give tips of like, oh, are you a free to play player? All right, here's how we recommend you kind of game the system so you can hopefully focus on one class, one deck, one archetype, and cobble together a competitively viable deck. It's been Zoo a lot of times. It's been Face Hunter a lot of times. You could also come back and now get a free deck if you've been gone long enough, and there's some really good free decks up for grabs. But all of that aside, we've had tips in the past on how to economically play this game for free or on a budget and cobble together a competitive deck. That would only be better, in my mind, if you could just go out and buy. I'm really excited about this class. I'm going to invest a little bit of money into having a better chance of collecting cards for a specific class. To me, I say, well, why not try it? Even if they're only available during a window. You know, if it's an event style sale, the same way this Mage bundle is, that's going to hit the game next week. Well, why not try it at least?
I kind of hope that they don't tie any sort of time limit to it. I think just making those available and making them available for gold would just be better for new players. They talk about the new player experience all the time, and everything you said is right, Garrett, that, there's advice on how to be competitive. There's also just like flavorful and how do I find the fun of Hearthstone. And the dust system is so difficult to actually, it's just so punishing to disenchant a card and then try to cobble together enough to make like one more card. So it's so punishing. And I wish that they would just make it easier to focus your time and money into one specific class, to just say like, okay, I want to try Warlock. I want to try Druid or whatever. And then like, I'm a new player. How do I get those cards? Like, it's just such an uphill climb. And this would be a way to alleviate that, is if they just made these class specific, hero specific packs available all the time for gold or for, real money, whatever. Like, insert currency here that we might get with a battle pass. Like,
yeah. I don't know. I at this point, like, the sale of packs is, there's so much that's tied into this that I'm sure falls on the business strategy side of teams at Blizzard, and they never talk to anyone. Like, the people who make decisions on what things cost and the economy of the game from a standpoint of actually spending real money on in-game items, like, they don't talk to anyone, and for good reason. It's a card game. The way we spend money in card games has always been a gamble, for a lack of a better word. I'm not saying it's gambling, but it's a gamble. You buy packs, you're not sure what you're going to get.
It's not a loot box, but it does all the things loot boxes do. I mean, the way that packs are sold is, when they made packs of cards in the real world, you had to take pieces of paper and then seal them up, and then someone had to go buy the pieces of paper. But that analogy kind of falls apart when digital goods are spun up out of nothing and require no materials, and the random contents are determined by algorithm. It's a lot harder to make that anachronism feel right unless you just straight up don't talk about it at all and let people accept it. And I'm not saying that I have a problem with card games because I've been doing this thing and buying the packs for a long, long time. But it seems like the team is at least aware they need to tip the scales a little bit and make things a little bit more player friendly. What I'd like to see here, honestly, put 10 welcome bundles in the shop, one for each class. $10, you get 10 class packs. You get the class basic or classic legendary, assuming those still exist. And you can only buy it once. Just make it so that each class you get a welcome bundle that you can buy. Also, I would love to see in set 3 this year that when they do the invitational, you do a choose your champion. They each represent a different class, and whichever class wins, you get class packs. How about that?
I dig it. There's so many things they could do, but I like class packs. I think it's cool. I think it should do a little bit more with it. Hopefully we don't need to wait a full year to see class packs for other classes.
Yeah, that's my other kind of big question around this is like, we're getting the mage stuff right now, but does that mean that we're going to have to wait 8, 9, 10, whatever months to get stuff for other classes? Like, again, comes down to, well, what if I'm not a mage player? What if I want to play hunter or warrior, blah, 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 whatever? Do I have to wait until, next March to get packs for my class?
Yeah.
Which
and I'm
doesn't
already
feel great. So,
and I'm already like personally split on this entire thing. PvE content is not something that gets me excited. We've talked about it on the show before. I think Joce and I are very much on the same page. Hat, I'm not sure where you fall. Are you a PvE fan?
I like having the option to play it. I didn't love the return to Galakron's Awakening because I don't like doing my card chores every week to get my cards.
Cool. All right, that plays directly into why I'm torn, because I look at this and I go, one pack is kind of a lame reward. It's super low impact.
It is very low, yeah.
But I kind of like that Jaina portrait, and now I'm left going, is it bad that they're making me pay for it, or am I happy that I can just pay for it and not feel forced to go play through a section of the game that doesn't particularly excite me as a player?
This becomes a very large-scale discussion on the economics of time versus money that probably exceeds the scope of our Hearthstone podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And
I like it. That's kind of where I fall. I don't know. I'm leaning towards, I'm kind of glad I could just buy the damn portrait and move on. So
me too. Anyways, I very much feel like, economics. But yeah, you know what? Let's just move on, because we're going pretty long, and there's so much battleground stuff. So
and we have a sponsor to thank, and how else am I going to afford the new Jaina portrait than by thanking this week's sponsor, MeUndies. That's right, they're back. They're back, sponsoring this episode of The Angry Chicken. I'm about to talk publicly about my underwear. You should go check them out over at MeUndies.com/TAC, because you're going to get 15% off your first order if you do so. Joce, you and I have talked a lot about MeUndies. Which means
we have. Yeah. I'm wearing some right now.
Yeah, I got to do another little mini old underwear purge. I was like, oh, you've been around for too long, and since I get the MeUndies subscription and underpants show up monthly, I'm just like, well, I've accrued enough actual nice underwear that's super soft and comfortable. I can get rid of my underwear that I questionably probably shouldn't have been wearing in the first place, because there's so many freaking holes in some of them.
Yeah, and I use mine to usher in the new season. So right now, I'm currently wearing snowmen because I'm getting super excited about fall into winter. Like, this is when my happy times start. It's not as hot outside anymore. I can go and not turn into a lobster. So yeah, I'm sporting my MeUndies with my snowmen because I'm getting stoked for the change of the season.
Be more Canadian.
It's impossible.
You should go,
unless they made red maple leaf underwear, then I could be more Canadian.
Nice. Well, you should go check them out because their undies grow on trees. No, seriously, like they're made from irresistibly soft natural fibers and they're sourced from beechwood trees. And do you know what natural fibers means? It means that their micromodal is not only super soft, but breathable, light, and impossibly cozy. I mean, that's some serious comfort. Everything MeUndies does is to help you feel truly comfortable from head to toe, from outside to in. My bum agrees with this statement. So go get 15% off your first order, free shipping, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Go to MeUndies.com/TAC. That is MeUndies.com/TAC. And now let's talk some battlegrounds.
Have a good battle, friend.
I will, Bob. So if you want to hear all about the new heroes, what they do specifically, and where Mekaru's going, and why a standard mech has taken its place, listen to last week's episode. But after just a day, so again, if you're looking at statistics websites, take things with a grain of salt. But it sure seems like the new heroes are making quite the entrance into Battlegrounds, because Forest Warden Omu and Jandis Barov are nipping at the heels of the Lich King and Maya of Shadow Song, and potentially even overtaking them depending on the MMR range you're looking at.
I found all three of them to be really, really fun. I haven't had Jandis offered to me yet, but I have played Lord Barov and I've played Forest Warden, and they're a lot of fun. And I think this is the first time I can remember where like all three of the heroes that have come out at the same time, or like the group of heroes that have come out at the same time, have all kind of been super fun, super impactful, and different in their own ways. Like we always seem to have like one dud, and I can't figure out of these three which one's the dud. I don't think any of them are. I think Lord Barov is probably the worst of the three, like maybe, except for if you pay attention and you know like I played him and I won my wager every single time I pushed that button, and I dominated because I was just like gold for days. So I mean, like I don't know, these all seem really good.
There's points in the game for me. So Lord Barov, I thought I was going to do the same. I think I got the first 5 right and I started on turn 2. But once we got to the mid to late game crossover, it became really hard to tell. At the end of the day, it's a coin flip, so you can still just get lucky. But still, I really do enjoy Barov. His day one sets are not looking hot. Bottom 10, I believe, is where he landed.
He's probably the hardest to play out of the three, though. It's the other two kind of have clear strategies, and Lord Barov is definitely, you gotta learn the odds, and there are some things that are kind of obvious, like if it's turn 2 and you see the Lich King versus anybody, you're probably fine. Or if you see AFK versus anybody, then you're definitely fine. But also ties kind of suck. You don't really want to deal with ties. But if you're playing in a 5 or 7 person lobby, or there's a ghost, and you know that you're picking someone going against a ghost, that's also kind of nice. It's going to be tricky, and we have to learn the patterns there.
Unless it's me, because I'm probably trying a pirate comp and then I lose to the ghost. I mean, twice this week. And one of those, I won the lobby, but I lost to the ghost. It was weird. But whatever the case is, despite wanting to temper exuberance about Lord Barrow from you, Joce, like, I love this hero. I freaking love him. It was the last hero I got to play before we came into the show today, and I was on freaking fire, and then my power went out, and clearly lost that game. As a result, damn you, Florida and lightning storms. But yeah, in the hat, you hit the nail on the head. You don't have a lot of time. Like, you need to, if you think you're going to hero power on a turn, do it right away so you can consult the left side of the battlegrounds and try and make an educated decision on who you're going to place your bet on, and then get it locked in, and then actually play the damn game of Battlegrounds and draft, is how I did it. Because I tried doing it the other way, where I was like, I'm going to take my time and draft and think, and then I got to the end, I was like, oh, crap, I need to actually research how everyone did. And goodness gracious, as if we didn't sing HSP praises enough, but the deck tracker is so useful if you're playing Barov. Once you've run into a decent amount of the heroes in the lobby, especially the more recent ones you've run into, because if they pop up in your wager, you have a pretty damn good idea of what their board is, and what chances they stand. So
now I played him without deck tracker. Just gonna brush my shoulders off a little here, and let me tell you, Garrett, that I agree with you. I think you need to, if you think you're gonna hero power, you need to do it as soon as possible in a turn. But I found it worked a little bit better if I did it kind of like halfway through. So still remembering that it was something that I was going to need to think about, but giving my opponents time to push that level up button, because knowing who, like watching the little thing pop out when they level up on a turn and knowing that that's been their leveling turn meant that I could look at that matchup and go, okay, I know they just leveled, which means they probably didn't buy. If this other person has been buying this round, even if they have less health, they're more likely to win. So I'm going to go with whoever didn't level. And that information doesn't come through right at the start of the turn.
Far be it from me to
get
schooled by someone who likes you, Sarah, but I just got schooled by someone who likes you, Sarah. Or not.
Is it possible that
Alex
Barov
Strauza? Sorry, yeah, Alex Strauza. Yeah, this is garbage here.
Maybe Barov is normal and then Joce is just OP. Maybe it's just you, Joce.
No, everything you just said it makes all the sense in the freaking world. I mean, you could hedge it, right? Like, he's probably not leveling up on like turn 6. Like turn 6 is probably the safest turn where no one is leveling. But you know, who knows? Maybe there's an Edwin. Edwins love leveling up to 3 on a turn late so they can weave in an extra hero power on turn 5. But
and I never level when I'm supposed to. I like to just keep it crazy and throw people off.
Win with Alex Strauza, so nothing you do makes sense. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Element of surprise.
I should have, and am mad at myself, but did not consider. Oh yeah, you should probably wait, you dumbass, because people might tear up, and that's important information to have.
But you are also very right that it takes longer than you think it's going to, because even when you're like if you're not playing with HS Replay, or even if you are, just figuring out who the game's going to offer you, because you don't know that. So you have to push your hero power button, see who the game's going to offer you, and then you have to hover over them. I mean, you could just YOLO and coin flip, but if you're going to like actually stop and think about it, then you need to, do your hover overs and actually digest that information. And, all of that takes time. And it's not the kind of thing you can prepare ahead of time, like knowing a comp, like knowing when to level up or knowing when to hero power, and all those things you can kind of learn about Battlegrounds. You need to be assessing real time what your lobby is doing. And that's not something that you can just be like, oh, you pick Pyramid every time, or you pick this one, or you do that. Or if you see these 2 heroes, this happens. It's not that predictable. So you actually have to stop and think about it. And when I first started doing it, I did the leave it to the end of the turn thing too. And then I was like, oh my God, I have 10 seconds. 10 seconds is not enough time. I don't know that one. And just panicked.
Yeah.
So
well, again,
it does take some thought, and it's not something that you can just straight up like memorize matchups sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But probably the most fun I've had with the hero in a really long time. It is so unique and plays on such a completely different aspect of Battlegrounds. I am in love. Like all the chef's kisses, just to whoever the frick conceived this hero power. It's so cool.
It's really clever, and it makes you pay attention to things that you normally wouldn't pay attention to, and it's variant in kind of a skill testing way, which they've been pushing a lot lately. It's cool. I'm glad it's in the game. I do expect the stats to get better over time as less people take him, because he is definitely the biggest brain of the 3 new heroes that we got. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Barov rise over time as we all get more used to playing Barov. Much the same way that I think when we first got access to looking at stats of Battlegrounds on HS Replay, Daryl was a lot lower than Daryl is now. We've all learned how to Daryl. but it took a village to raise that Murloc. Raise that Murloc we did. Jandis Barov, I only gotten a chance to play her once. It went very poorly, but everyone's talking about Jandis Barov and Pogo Hoppers, and it absolutely works as long as you find a Pogo Hopper relatively early. My game went very poorly because I decided, since I hadn't found one in the regular course of tiering up, I would stay on two extra turns. And I still didn't find one in those 2 extra turns that I shouldn't have been on tier 2. And then I just fell hopelessly behind because my options of other non-Pogo minions were crap. And by the time I found a Pogo, it was too late.
I was going to say, were mechs in your lobby? Because that's also a thing that can happen.
Yes, mechs were. So I only played her once. And the first, when she popped up, because I already heard about the Pogo. I played so many games yesterday and I didn't get a single new hero offered to me. They were all offered to me today. And all 3 of them were offered to me in back-to-back games right before we recorded.
I thought you were going to say
chicken.
all at once. I was like, oh, that sucks.
No. One of them I did get Jandis and Barov offered at the same time. I can't remember which one. I think I went with Barov because I was just so excited to try his hero power. And then the next game, Jandis was offered again. Anyway, got a chance to try all 3 right before the show. And then I DC'd on one of them. So, yay.
Rip.
But, the buffs don't go away when you use Jandis Barov's hero power. And as a refresher for anyone listening, Jandis's hero power is 0 gold. Swap a friendly non-golden minion with a random one in Bob's Tavern. And so last week we talked about how, hey, battle cries. Why wouldn't you want to just cycle battle cries? This sounds great. You can control the minion that goes back. So send back a beneficial battle cry, buy it back, redeploy it, get double your battle cry value. Didn't realize Pogo Hoppers would be keeping their buffs, but it makes sense. And now I get why that non-golden, I already got why that non-golden was on there, but that is a really extremely important distinction because, are they not golden? Delightful. You can just keep cycling it. And so Pogo Hoppers, Jandis is the queen of Pogo Hopper.
And I think it's also kind of important, or you need to, I guess, be careful as well when you're playing Pogo Hoppers because you can kind of accidentally golden yourself.
Yeah,
there's so many of them and you want to just keep playing them and make them bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And then before you know it, it's like, oh no, I didn't want to buy that one. Now I have a golden and I can't keep, using this engine that is this hero power.
Yeah, they're not the most contested minions. And even in a world where there's 7 other Jocelyn's in the lobby and they just want to hate draft, it's a tier 2 minion. There's a ton of them in the pool.
Yep.
So 15. That's a lot.
And I think that Bran is the only other one who I've seen be the one who wants to go after those Pogo Hoppers. And again, he has other options. So
I can't.
You can shutter walk if you really want to shutter Pogo, but you still have to find the Pogos.
Anyone play shutter walk anymore though? I never see shutter walk.
Yeah, not a lot.
You can, yeah.
You could have Galacrond. And
no, you can't. Nope, I'll stop you right there. That hero does not exist.
No, I'm just saying if Galacron was one of your other options and maybe Arana was one of your other options and whoever else is rotting at the bottom of Battlegrounds at the moment. I
feel like Shutterwalk is not even that low. Maybe I'm wrong. Not enough data. Okay. Yikes.
There you have it.
Yeah. I do think J-Bar has some other options, which is there's Barov is too confusing. J-Bar, you know who I'm talking about when I say J-Bar. You know what I'm saying.
You just say Jandis, but sure. I guess we're going with J. You do you.
J-Bar.
You do you, Hat.
J-Bar. Yeah. But you can go Murlocs like you talked about last week, and any hero in the lobby right now can go dragons. Don't feel the need to lock yourself into Pogos if it's tier 2 and you don't see one and you just keep rolling for them. But as soon as you see one, if you have enough gold and the first time you play a Pogo, if it's the first Pogo you see, you play it, swap it, play it again, then it's a 3-3. But then the next time you swap it, it becomes a 7-7, then a 13-13, and it gets really out of hand really quickly. So as soon as you see one, if it's early on in the game, you can go for it. But treat it kind of like a hangry dragon. If it's too late to buy a hangry dragon, it's probably too late to buy a 1/1 Pogo if that's your first one.
What if you find a brand?
I never buy hangry.
No, it's cursed. No.
I never, ever, ever find hangry ever. It's just, it never works for me.
Yeah, I found it really like one of those rare games where you like triple into discovering a tier 3. You're like, I mean, it's early enough. I should win this. My board's great. Nope. You get a tie. You get the 6% chance for a tie, and your Hanger Dragon just sits there as a 4/4. You just go, thanks, game. You know who feels?
I even like had him on my board and then bought like the buff a dragon dude, and I've like buffed him up just so he feels better about his life because he hasn't been able to buff himself at all, and I just don't want him to feel bad for not having green stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. It's rough. It's rough to say.
I imagine the correlation with losing a fight and buying a textless 3-star 4/4 is probably pretty high. Because when you buy Hanger, you're buying a textless 3-star 4/4, and surprise, surprise, it's often not good enough.
Yeah.
Are you feeling lucky is the question you need to ask yourself when you buy Hangry Dragon. And then finally, Forest Warden Omu, nipping at the heels of our top tier heroes, at least after a day of play. And it makes sense. You just get more economy by just playing the game. You just play Battlegrounds and you get a powerful economy with Omu because you get 2 more gold after you upgrade Bob's Tavern. And this lets you do cute things like just leveling up on turn 6 with impunity to tier 4. Just going tier 3 on 5, tier 4 on 6. It's delightful. You also get to weave in rerolls.
Delightful's one word for it.
It's strong.
He's very strong.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to play Omu, which means I got to tier up on 6, to 4 on 6, and I would describe it as delightful.
I actually tripled on the turn when I also leveled to 5 and got a Caligos on like a turn, I don't know, 7, 8. It was stupid early anyways. And I was just like, well, I'm dragons now. And I won that lobby. No problem.
And you also had
this is gross.
2 extra gold to probably buy a battle cry.
Yeah. And it was also no Murlocs. So no one could do poison. So I just had these giant dragons and I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm not. But also I'm sorry.
You weren't sorry enough to change your behavior. So how sorry could you really have been? No, I was not. I just really wanted to win. I played Battlegrounds like the whole way home on our 6-hour drive from our cottage on the weekend. And I did terribly because I was playing on mobile and my signal was coming in and out and I tanked my MMR and I didn't even care because Battlegrounds is just so fun that I don't even care if I'm winning. And yeah, so I was like, you know what? I don't feel bad enough to stop because I think I'm going to win this. And that just feels really good. Spoiler alert, guys. Winning feels good.
I can't wait until the story next week when Joss goes, I found Caligos and there were Murlocs, but then I found an Adina.
Oh, I had her too.
You had in a non-Murloc lobby. Like, you're, wow. Evil.
There will be no dragon shaming here. No dragon shaming.
I'm not shaming. I'm just trying to be the voice of the audience. You kidding me? I will force dragons anytime I find Caligos.
Every
I'll
once
dragons
in a
anytime
while.
I find Bronze Warden. I was just like, Bronze Warden, we're dragons now.
Bronze Warden, I'll usually yell, Divine Shield. Divine Shield's making a comeback. Divine Shield comps are finding a place in this Battlegrounds meta, and I am happy about it. I'm very happy about it. What you may not have been happy about in the last 24 hours is tripling your Micro Mummy. Because yes, Mekaru is out, Micro Mummy was in, and who knows, it might be back since we just saw that update. But there was an issue with Micro Mummy where if you tripled Micro Mummy, it would just crash your game and lose you the lobby. And I totally ran over a Barov that I've lost my 2 previous lobbies against because that Barov tripled their Micro Mummy, and I saw it coming. You know what? This was the first game I played yesterday after the patch went up. I went in, I had Sliss's stream on my second monitor, and Cora was in Sliss's stream informing everyone about the Micro Mummy bug, and I go, good to know, because I already had one on board. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to triple this. And then I see the Barov, and I go up against him. He had 1, and I lose. And I run into Barov, I think, 2 turns later. Barov had 2 micro mummies, and I lose. And I just go, boy, it sure would be terrible if this Barov tripled this micro mummy. And sure enough, run into Barov like 7 turns later, like way later, and just a pathetic, ridiculous board. But it probably wasn't that much later because Barov wasn't dead yet. But yeah, it was. I knew exactly what happened, and I feel like I should feel bad, but I was just extremely entertained with all of the knowledge I had.
I can just picture Garrett on his side of the battleground going, I'm smarter than you.
No, I read Slissa's chat. That was what I was singing. That's what I was singing. Thank you, Cora.
Okay, so that's something to be proud of. That offsets not rooting for someone to crash their game, but like benefiting from their game crashing. Balance that out.
Yeah, pretty much. But I'm gonna wager, Barov style, that Micro Mummy is back in the game after that patch that happened during the show. Just like the 2 games I got to play with Micro Mummy before they emergency removed Micro Mummy from the game, were good. Micro Mummy feels really good. This buff at the end of your turn is great. Or in early game battlegrounds, I only had a chance to play with one of them on board, and obviously I had knowledge not to like purposely triple, but I would have grabbed a second one if I could have. It seems powerful. It seems in most cases better than Mekaru, so I'm happy with Micro Mummy.
I'd say a strict buff over Mekaru, and probably by design, because mechs were, well, y'all have been talking about it for a little while now. They're a good way to sneak into top 4 and
not go any further.
Yeah. They're a good way to look at a junk bot at 5 in the tavern and say, remember when we used to play that card at 4? Oh. And yeah.
Remember junk bot?
They're a good way to stabilize and try and eke out a proper Divine Shield comp with some of the mechs. But that's...
And Bronze Warden.
Bronze Warden?
And
yeah,
Bronze.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's why it's like, well, I'm already mechs. I didn't find a Bronze Warden. Oh, but I found one later. All right, we're going for the full Divine Shield dream.
Yeah. And then you take the Bronze Warden, and then you take the Draconic Enforcer, and then you're like, wow, Nadina would be good here, and then you're dragons. I don't know.
You either die a mech player or you live long enough to transition into dragons.
Christopher Nolan was right again.
Christopher Nolan is always right. Except trying to force movies back into theaters, I guess. I don't know. Topical on the Anger Chicken today. I forgot about Pack Leader's nerf and have drafted Beast 3 times and it still worked out. Beast still seemed to be doing
that's
all right.
not one that you're drafting for stats.
You know where it hurts?
Drafting for stats on other things.
Yeah, you know where it hurts as my voice cracks in excitement about something that feels bad is Cave Hydra. That one extra attack does feel bad. It messes with some breakpoints on Cave Hydra attack figures, especially in the I had so many games leading up to this patch where I ended up with like 2 pack leaders on my board, and would drop a Cave Hydra. It actually feels almost worse in that scenario than with a single pack leader. It was like with a single pack leader, oh, I doubled it, but like there's 2 damage missing now if you're dropping a Cave Hydra with 2 pack leaders on board. And for some reason to me, that hurts a little bit more than the single, but yeah. So anyways, before we move on and talk about new comments from Iksar on the subject of 4-stack queuing in Battlegrounds, we have one more sponsor to thank today, and that is Hellofresh. They are back sponsoring this episode of The Angry Chicken. You can go check them out over at hellofresh.com/80TAC. That's 80TAC, and use the code 80TAC. You're going to get $80 off your first box. If you are somehow unaware of HelloFresh, they are the meal kit delivery service that I am a big fan of because food, ready to cook meals just show up at my door. It's all there. It's in a box. As I've mentioned before, the box defies my understanding of how hot it can get in Florida, but the way that this cooled refrigerated box is insulated is amazing. It totally works and stays cold until I can get to the door and get my box. And there's something for everyone. There's low calorie options, vegetarian options, family friendly recipes every week. They also offer contactless delivery to your doorstep, so you don't need to deal with someone or talk to them, which I love. And you can easily change your delivery days or your food preferences. You can even skip a week whenever you need. I was once again reminded of how much I am weirdly into their burgers, because I still remember the very first time I ever tried Hellofresh and there was like a burger on the menu. I'm like, I've made burgers before. And they're like, but have you caramelized onions and thrown them on your burger? And I was like, no.
Or have you eaten this cheese that you can't pronounce but is going to be delicious?
Right. Or put that cheese inside the burger and then cook that burger. It was not the manchego, no. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's been HelloFresh recipe before.
I'm a cheese enthusiast.
I can't pronounce it. If I could pronounce it, you would know. But they've got so many, they pop up every once in a while, and I highly recommend it. On top of the fact that I've learned that I like things like risotto because of HelloFresh. I didn't know that was a thing before I started trying HelloFresh. So go look them up. Go to hellofresh.com/80tac right now and use the code 80tac. That's 80TAC to get a total of $80 off, including free shipping on your first box. Additional restrictions apply. Please visit hellofresh.com for more details. And again, that is $80 off your first box when you go to hellofresh.com/80TAC and use the code 80TAC. And now let's talk about what Iksar has been talking about. So, four-stack queuing in Battlegrounds is now possible. You can also go do custom lobbies, which is why we're going to be doing an Angriest Chicken open tournament in Battlegrounds, because now we can. We couldn't do it before. But there is a lot of concern about four-stacking in Battlegrounds, probably because some streamers have done it and shown how powerful it can be in coordinated groups. But right before we went live with this show, Iksar started replying to concerns on the Bob's Tavern subreddit, not the Hearthstone subreddit, reddit.com/r/Bob's Tavern. If you're unaware of this subreddit, you should add it to your list, especially if you're in the Hearthstone Battlegrounds.
I did not know that there was a Battleground subreddit. Like, I mean, of course there is, but it never really occurred to me. It was like I had my Hearthstone and my competitive Hearthstone subreddits, and those are where I go. I don't know why I didn't realize that there was a Battleground specific one, but there is. So if you're like me, the link's in our show notes. Go add that to your Reddits.
Yes.
Garrett, he said more. Should I add to the notes? He said more things.
Sure, unless you want to summarize it quickly. So one of the biggest threads over there right now is titled "How Critical is the 4-person group?" And there's been a lot of discussion happening in this thread, and Iksar has been getting in there now and talking about it. And so this isn't as prepared as a lot of our information that we give to you on the show normally is. But
it's literally coming in hot, guys. Like, this is happening as we're recording, so bear with us as we pull the information together. Coming
in so hot.
So hot.
Missed opportunity there.
She said it.
She actually said it. I did not hit the button. And it wasn't Ragnaros, despite what you think. Anyway,
they exclusively brought me in as a third-party witness to prove that Joce actually said it. Garrett, I can go now if you want. I'll stay. Yeah.
That was it. But Iksar started talking about concerns about group queue, and he said there are a bunch of potential solutions to solve group queue issues relating to competitive integrity. Don't fall asleep. There's interesting stuff here, I promise. He went on to say, once we have an accurate baseline of the average different skill sets of players get 4K, 6K, 10K, etc. by grouping together, we can adjust the matchmaking rating of those group players to create a fair experience. I talked about this last week. Here's the Storm does stuff like this. And I was
does
surprised.
Stuff like what, does like put stuff in to get more data?
If I group together with, say we have I'm grouped with you and you're gold, you're grouped with me, I'm platinum, we're grouped with Kyle, he's diamond, it tries to find a matchup either of similarly placed players or what that system believes is close to a fair match. So maybe it can't find those three exactly. So it'll like add a bronze level player, but also a master's level player to try and counteract it.
To average it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm talking extremely broadly. There's so much more depth to the system, but that's kind of the basic gist of it. And that's what it sounds like Iksar is describing here. And, we talked about it last week. I was surprised that there was no talk of this leading up to being able to force stack. Because I'm not inherently against this. I think the idea of being able to group with your friends is cool. I think Battlegrounds is fun, and I have more fun when I play with my friends. It's cool for it to be a social experience, and Hearthstone really lacks in in-game social experiences. So, anyway, it went on to say that whether you queue up into a game with group players or solo players, your expected rating adjustment end of game would be the same in this system that he's kind of detailing here. Does he get into any sort of timeline if this is something that they're thinking about doing soon?
As far as I understand, again, from a very, very quick skim, is the idea is that they need more data. Once they get more data and figure out how the lobbies work, then they're going to tweak the numbers behind the scenes so that you will not necessarily be negatively impacted by a 4-stack if it turns out from the data that the 4-stack is a competitive advantage. So that who you're playing against won't be just MMR, but also might include, if they do have data to back it up, will include some sort of modifier for like you being a solo against a 3-stack and a 2-stack or something like that. Like that will play into it as well. So this is still beta, I guess, is what all of this is kind of coming down to. And they need us to play, and they need us to give them information so that they can make good adjustments on the back end, and your MMR then won't necessarily suffer. So if I go in as a solo player and I go and queue into a 4-stack and they absolutely decimate me, I won't lose necessarily as many points as if I had been in a lobby of 8 solo players for coming in the same place, is what I take away from this post. In theory, at some sort of later time when the data supports a decision like that.
Yeah. I mean, another simple thing is just match. If we also mentioned last week, match 4 stacks with 4 stacks.
Well, and that's he put some potential solutions in the, like, in addition to MMR end of game rating calculations, also talked about things like disabling groups of that size past a certain MMR, or potentially, like you said, only pairing like grouped players together, making an entirely separate queue. All of these sort of things are solutions, but they want to make sure that they're not, I guess, punishing players too much for actually taking advantage of a system that's built into the game, right? Like, they don't want you to have a downside if you want to play with your friends, which, I mean, this, I feel like I'm having a Dead by Daylight conversation right now, because this happens all the time in Dead by Daylight, because you can queue as survivors where you have 4 survivors on voice comms against 1 killer, and people, it's much more powerful than playing when you're solo. So this is a conversation I've had in that community so many times.
Same in Heroes of the Storm, because they used to have separate queues and they merged them at a certain point.
Yeah. So it's like, do you balance around like players who are in a group together, talking over voice and potentially manipulating a game? Or do you balance it around the solo players? If you balance it around group players, is that too much of a punishment to solo players? And this is where I think in Hearthstone specifically, the MMR number is really going to play a role, because I'm not going to mind going into a lobby with a 4-stack if my MMR isn't going to be impacted as much, you know? Like, if there's like a built-in buffer for the fact that I'm solo, then I feel like that will be okay. And again, this also comes from a Battlegrounds player that views it as more of like this is just a fun place I like to spend my time. I don't care if I win or lose. Like, I don't know why, but my Battlegrounds rating I've never taken it to heart as much as my constructed ladder level. I don't know why that is, but it's just like my own attitude towards the mode. So yeah, I mean, I have fun whether I win or I lose. So if my number doesn't go down as much because I'm solo, then that would be good. I would enjoy that, but it's not going to change how much I enjoy the mode.
And for people where Battlegrounds is their main mode and they do identify with their MMR, right? And the progress, and they're really looking to make a competitive push. I think it's totally understandable if anyone has concern about this new system impacting the competitive integrity of the mode. It's totally reasonable to be concerned about it. At the same time, been out for 29, 30 hours. Give it a minute. Give the devs a minute. And there's enough upside here for people that aren't necessarily playing competitively that removing it completely and just rolling back the patch and saying we're not going to do this, I think we can confidently say would be a mistake. But there's also definitely room for improvement as to how it impacts the competitive scene, which is what the devs are saying here. Is what Iksar is saying. And there's been think about the amount of communication we've gotten already within the past 24 hours. If you're not following Cora's Twitter account, that is now officially Blizzard Twitter. That is Hearthstone Twitter. If you want to know what's happening in the game, she's telling people not to pick micro mummies because it'll break the game. She's talking about hot fixes. She's talking about other bugs. And she just tweeted here, and I'm going to read this if it's okay with Boss Man over there. Yes.
Go for it.
Yes. Cora made this tweet. Games are supposed to be fun. If the game isn't fun, we will fix whatever is making it not fun. This isn't actually my job. I just know I would want this communication if I were on the other side of things. Listeners, I strongly recommend, first of all, follow songbird_HS on Twitter if you want up-to-date news. And second, if you appreciate the communication coming from the development team lately as much as I do, as much as we do, a word of thanks, a word of appreciation goes a really long way in a profession that is usually either invisible or burning in effigy. It's usually either everything is fine and nothing bad is happening, or someone is yelling at you because your game is broken. It really can't be overstated how far Blizzard has come, how far Team 5 has come in such a short amount of time. Descent of Dragons less than a year ago. And think about what was going on before that. Think about Tombs of Terror for 2 straight months with nothing. And now we're getting tweets the same day and Reddit posts the day after. It's an incredible leap in player communication. It's really player friendly. They're looking to fix it. They're working on it. And concern is valid, but give it a minute and let them work on it and fix it. And it's still fun. And like Cora said, if it's not fun, they're going to fix it.
Yeah, and that was something Iksar touched on in his post too, the idea of actual or perceived fairness. And I think, again, this plays into something that we were talking about earlier with Constructed is, it's not necessarily whether the numbers all add up and things are balanced. Like if it doesn't feel good, if it's not fun, if you feel that you are being punished for playing as a solo player, that's something that they are willing to take into account when looking at how the mode works and how the game works. So, again, like give them your feedback in a fair and constructed way and just, like be adults, be people and remember that the ones on the other side are people too.
Yeah. It's, we've had some really great communication, but also there have been some things that people have gotten worked up about. And when the communication is positive, they take it and they listen. And when the communication is negative, even if there's some element of truth in it, it's hard for them to find it beyond the profanity and vulgarity and whatever you want to call it. Feedback's okay, but it's not personal. They're trying to make a game that we love, and the developers could always go into any other software field where if you make Quicken for a living, no one tweets you like, I can't believe you made it so hard to balance my checkbook. Nerf checks. What's going on? Like, it's just, you just make a program and then it works. Then you go home at 5 o'clock and nobody tweets at you saying to fix your Quicken.
You just described why I have stuck with contract and freelance work outside of podcasting, because it is the complete opposite and kind of nice in its own way. It's like, oh, they want me to do this thing, I'm going to do this thing, and then that'll be the end of this transaction, and I don't need to hear about on Twitter that I didn't pronounce a fictional character's name the right way. It's nice. It's nice sometimes. Are you saying that you should go to Quicken if video game communities are too hostile? Where are you going with this hat?
It's like if you make unglamorous software, nobody yells at you while you're not working about it. It's like maybe if you run the corporate Microsoft account, people might tweet at you about Windows, but if your bio says Microsoft developer, no one's going to at you about your webcam drivers causing problems.
I have definitely added Logitech for web, but you know what? I didn't go and hunt down Logitech driver developers. So you know what?
You didn't go find Bobby Logitech, founder of Logitech. Like it's.
And you know why? Because they don't talk to us in the first place. And so you bring up, this all comes back around to the developers are putting themselves out there by communicating with us in the first place. Let's not punish them by being jerks.
Iksar, just to bring it back to Hearthstone, Iksar also mentioned that the majority of solo players won't know or care that they're playing against group players. And I think this obviously is pointing to, they're not going to give us any kind of indicator, which Garrett, coming from Heroes of the Storm specifically, I know like when you get group players there, they have those little party icons. And I'm interested to know your thoughts on that. They removed that from the game
because they didn't want us knowing if we're against the pre-made. But you can tell. You can tell.
Because like that was my question, is because I know, again, Dead by Daylight has a similar thing, or the community is asking Dead by Daylight to implement something like that because people want to know when they're playing against a stack or like teams. And do you think, like, I personally like that information, and I think if you're a dev, you shouldn't want to hide that if your game is balanced and fair and fun, like
truest form of a double-edged sword. Like its purest form. Because in a perfect world, yes, it's good to have that information so that if you would then like to go and talk to someone like Iksar and say, I don't like getting matched against 4 stacks. I was just matched against a 4 stack. I know it for a fact because of the UI decision you've made in the game.
Yep.
And I got blocked out of drafting multiple minion types, not tribes. However, you get a placebo effect. You could just get unlucky. Bob could have just screwed you because Bob screws you sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you could have just had a poor draft that had nothing to do with the 4 stack you just ran up against. They weren't actually dominating the draft pool. You just straight up got unlucky, and you have no true way of knowing that. I mean, maybe you ran into all 4 of them late game, and you know that they actually were cornering the draft pool with the way that you were trying to build, and they even cornered the thing you tried to transition out of, so on and so forth. But the truth is, you are going to get a certain percentage of false positives of placebo influenced negative feedback, and so. It is. I don't know. It's a true double-edged sword in my mind. I personally err on the side of something should be done. Where I would imagine Iksar's comments is going to get blowback is in an area where he says, I think that the overwhelming majority of solo players will not know or care if they are playing against group players.
It's like, they won't maybe not know, but they would care, I would think.
Yeah. Like, we've been covering Hearthstone since the beginning. We've seen a lot of different community outreach styles and the feedback that follows. Sure, I'm certain because of how many people play Hearthstone, the majority of the overall player base probably wouldn't know or care. I think a vocal minority on Reddit, forums, etc. will know, will care, and will make that abundantly clear through comments. So that's like where I go, ooh, if I were you, I would have used different words there, because I could see that, getting some pushback there, because I think something should be done, because the way I assume the system works is it doesn't take into account that you're a 4 stack at all. And it seems to be confirmed by Iksar's comments here that the system doesn't take any consideration whatsoever. No. And I just think that's wrong. It's me, not a game designer, with an opinion. Congratulations. I should start a podcast. But
they're open to bringing things like that into the matchmaking, though. Like that's one of many solutions that he offers in his post. They're talking about how they need more data to make an informed decision, and I think that that's the right way to go about it, is let us play, get the data, make a decision, instead of like trying a whole bunch of stuff that never really works or never really feels right. Just get information and then go. Because again, like, and we've talked about this before, is when they're going to remove this beta tag, they're still changing things, they're still testing things. And one more big change that we haven't even touched on yet is the fact that they're going to reset our MMRs soon in 18.4. So after that, they're then also going to reset every major Battlegrounds patch. And as far as we know or understand, major Battlegrounds patches are going to be sometime shortly after an expansion. So these are the major patches that Iksar told us about months ago, when he was talking about just pacing of updating Battlegrounds in general. So we're getting MMR resets. It's happening. It's coming in soon-ish, 18.4, whenever that is. We are in 18.2 right now. So thoughts on battleground resets? Thoughts on MMR resets?
Well, he also goes into detail saying that when it happens, we're going to go to 0, not 4,000, which is where we started.
Yeah.
When the Battlegrounds beta first hit, or if you're getting into it for the first time right now. And
well, kinda, because there are 2 ratings. This is the tricky part. They're going
to a 2 rating system.
It is.
I'm trying not to be too bummed about that, but I'm pretty bummed about that.
I mean, and this is like what they did with ladder, with constructed ladder. It's basically the same thing, where they're going to have some kind of system where you make progression during the Battleground season, which I guess is now going to be effectively per Battlegrounds expansion, because they kind of do the Battlegrounds expansion equivalents.
Oh, does he say that in here?
2 months. There's going to be a matchmaking rating, which is the MMR that you use to match you with, and then the visual rating, which is the rating you see on your account. And said it's very similar to how the star ratings reset system works in constructed Hearthstone. They said they feel like that system is relatively successful because hardcore users zoom through the system pretty quickly, but less hardcore users get to play in a mostly progression-based system. So on reset, your visual rating goes to 0, but your MMR stays the same. That rating you've worked on, it's still used to match you with opponents, but your visual rating, which is like your stars and your rank and all that, that's what changes over time. And then after however many games you have to play based on how the system works, they will roughly end up with your MMR and your visual rating aligning. So the really high ranked players will be Battlegrounds Legends, and then there will be like, I don't know if they'll actually have like cosmetic terms like Battlegrounds Diamond, Battlegrounds Platinum, whatever.
Yeah,
but it looks like
they didn't touch on that at all, really. They just said that you'll have some sort of visual rating, but they didn't say what that was going to actually look like or if we'd be dealing with a star system. But they did say that you go from take about 30 to 60 lobbies in order for you to go from 0. So from your reset rank back up to kind of where you were. So again, very similar to how constructed Hearthstone works. And then you will pretty much stay there unless you magically get better.
I would say, I think it's safe to infer that we're still going to be dealing with a number and not bronze through diamond, because if he says he says your quote, your visual rating will go to 0, not your visual rating will go to bronze.
Right. Yeah. Which could just be that they haven't decided. Could just be that they haven't decided how to show it to us, or if they want it to match constructed Hearthstone. Again, beta, and also this is coming in the next patch, and we don't actually know when that's going to be, but maybe they haven't decided yet. Maybe they're going to do a season where we get numbers, and then another season where we get stars, and another season where we get, I don't know, flowers and rainbows.
I think it'll be
unicorns. Unicorns.
Will probably be with a big update to Battlegrounds then, if the whole idea is to sync this up with major Battlegrounds updates. So I guess up until now, we could have assumed that had we had this rating reset, it would have resetted with dragons, and then we would have built, and then it would have reset at pirates, and then we would be building until now.
So then I think we can also infer that 18.4 is going to be our next official major Battlegrounds patch. And so we haven't had our major patch yet, and that will be some big something coming again with 18.4, whenever that is. But, soon-ish, within the next month or so, I would guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't put this 18.2 update on par with Pirates or Dragons, but it is a pretty damn big update for Battlegrounds.
Well, I mean, it's 3 heroes and a few minion changes, right? Which we have talked about that being minor before.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was saying. I wouldn't, but custom lobbies.
Custom lobbies
in like the greater pantheon of updates we've gotten to Hearthstone and features we've gotten to Hearthstone. Custom lobbies is like unheard of. This is titanic.
Yeah,
like we still can't play our friends with our arena decks. Like.
It's huge, but it's not. It's structural and not content based. And so this is a large patch, but it's not a content patch. It's a how you play as opposed to the things that you play with. In terms of actual Battlegrounds balance, 18.0.2 was bigger than this because no more Megasaur, no more Cannon. That was enough by itself. And they also changed all of Beasts. But in terms of structural and how we can play, then yes, 100%, this is big. But yeah, I like your theory, Joss. I assume this will be. It seems like the mid-set patch is Battlegrounds, that they basically have BGs and constructed at exactly opposite cadences, so that when you get bored of one, you get to switch the other right in the middle. I don't know how they're going to fit in new game mode, however they're going to do that into this schedule, but we don't know what it is yet. So I guess it remains to be seen.
We don't.
I haven't gotten as burnt out on Battlegrounds. I haven't really. There's been maybe 2 points where I've been like totally burnt out, and it was right before the Megasaur change. I was just like so done with Murlocs, and then 1 point before that, and I can't really put my finger on what it was, but it's
Floating Watch Demons.
Ooh, probably, yeah. Even though I was doing it constantly right alongside everybody else, but yeah, I think it's the nature of an auto battler. At the end of the day, it is in and of itself so random that even when the meta stays the same, there's still a decent amount of variance to kind of keep things interesting. But it's good. I mean, a lot of other card games, there's a sense of like you have your main format, right? Like in Magic, like I only really ever played limited and mostly sealed. And even within limited, I could have gone from sealed to draft and so on. Hearthstone has never really had that. We've had our arena diehards and we've had our constructed diehards, and that's basically it. And this current cadence, as you mentioned, Hat, I think is perfect. You bring up a great point. It's really good. If you're vaguely interested in both Battlegrounds and Standard, it's fantastic. It's perfect. They've absolutely timed it out really well. But I think it's fun.
You never really feel torn, right?
Yeah. I've never had the feeling in Hearthstone.
I feel torn. I have a day job and I want to play both modes.
That is fair. That is fair. This is the closest I've ever come to feeling like there's too many ways to play Hearthstone. I still don't think I truly feel there's too many ways to play Hearthstone. I think it might be cool to feel like there's too many ways to play Hearthstone, like concrete, like a fact. Like there's just too much. I can't interface with it all. Because that's how I feel in World of Warcraft, and that's fine. I accept that, and I just I make my own goals in that game. And I think that's absolutely cool and would be a rad place for Hearthstone to be for a change. So bring on the new game mode. I want to see what it is. And also bring on the end of the show because we've kept you too long, Hat. You've been very generous with your time on top of starting late because of my power outage. So
yeah, I'll have to stop talking about Hearthstone here so I can go on Twitter and talk about Hearthstone.
Yeah, and also
busy night.
I have a feeling we're going to dissect Iksar's comments again next week and actually like properly dive into them. But anyways, huge thanks again to our patrons. Thank you very much for the support, everybody. It's the best way to support us. A good chunk of how we make a living comes from the Angry Chicken. So consider supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. Also lets us give some money to our guests for their time. We actually do pay our guests when they come on and give us their thoughts and their opinions and work with us on the show. So check it out, patreon.com/TAC. Go sign up for Taco once we actually put it up. Again, we're still figuring out how we're going to bracketify a game mode that is already inherently has 8 players, but we'll have details for you soon. And again, we will be doing our open Battlegrounds tournament on the final Friday of this month. So also huge thanks to our producers, Declan H, Cheesy Bob, and Lord of the Cup. Thank you so much for your support, you three. If you want to catch more Angry Chicken, catch up on back episodes, maybe you want to go hear our initial thoughts on the new Battlegrounds heroes last week and see how wrong we were this week. That's always entertaining. Check it out over at amove.tv. Every episode we've ever done is over there. But before we go, Ridiculous Hat, you do a ton of Hearthstone content. Probably as much Hearthstone content, if not more, as I do general Blizzard content. Where can people find that?
So you can find me on my podcast about financial software. Find me on The Angry Quicken. Yes, I have been waiting the entire show to say that.
Wow.
Yes, I have. Garrett left. He's gone now.
Yep. He's gone forever.
Yes.
Oh, wait, we weren't supposed to tell people when he left.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, we broke his rules.
Oh, man. I'll have to edit that out.
Yeah, it's okay. Garrett will miss you. You can find me. So I've taken a little break from streaming because I've gone back to work, and it's definitely Garrett, hi. You're muted, buddy.
Am I safe from the puns? Can I come back now?
No promises.
You are never safe.
Never safe. Yes. Okay, he's gone again. You can find me, the podcast that I'm doing right now are Coin Concede and the Vicious Syndicate podcast. That's coinconcede.com, vicioussyndicate.com. Coin Concede is all about making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. So it's all about bringing the tournament experience and the high-level ladder experience as well to be accessible to players looking to improve their Hearthstone game. Vicious Syndicate, that is the companion piece of the Data Reaper report. All data, all business, all the time. So if you want to get up to date with the current meta and get an idea as to where decks and classes are going, that's definitely the podcast to check out. I have wanted to stream. I've taken a little break, but you can follow me over at twitch.tv/RidiculousHat as well as my YouTube content over at youtube.com/RidiculousHat. Those are on pause for right now until I figure out how people balance their lives and other stuff.
Spoiler alert, we don't sleep.
Yes. So working on that, but in the meantime also, I tweet a lot, twitter.com/RidiculousHat. Yeah, I think that's everything. I think so. Josh, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joce Plays. That's JOCE Plays. You can find links to everything I do at jossplays.com. And if you're looking for Garrett, you can follow him over on Twitter at GarrettArt, as well as go to nomoonart.com for his stream designs. He also has a whole bunch of shows on amove.tv, including Into the Nexus about Heroes of the Storm. Let's talk about Star Wars about Star Wars, and WoW Killer about, World of Warcraft things with Taliesin. It's delightful.
I was here the whole time.
Yes. We were just making up when he left.
Definitely check out Into the Nexus tomorrow because we're going to have Keenabrew on, artist from the Heroes of the Storm team, to talk about the awesome Warcraft StarCraft crossover event that's currently happening in Heroes of the Storm. Thank you again, Hat, for joining us. Seriously, folks should go check out your content. You're doing some awesome stuff out there. And that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. So until next time, job's done.
Job's done.
That was done.
Your cat is ridiculous.
Thrall's being ridiculous right now.
Absurd.
She's so adorable.
Look at those eyes. Oh, Thrall.
He just keeps rolling around in my lap.
I've just got
and
this.
Just every so often, just a paw to the face. Just
I've got Bailey here. He was messing with me when I was doing the gag where I got out of frame. What you doing, buddy?
I don't have a pet.
What are you doing?
I have a water bottle.
Oh, I mean, you can pet your water bottle. That's okay. No one's gonna judge you.
Yeah, we won't judge.
I'm kind of judging myself.
I mean, chat might, but
yeah. Chat, forgive me.
All right, cool. Well, it is late, so I bet we're all hungry.
I need to get food in my belly.
Yeah, we're hungry for dinner things. So, chat, I'm going to bring the stream down now. Thank you so much for hanging out and for judging us. And we will talk to you all very soon. Bye now.